So, before I go into cut into the discussions and the introductions, I would like to uh, do self-introductions. So, first of all, I'm now pursuing my master degree in law in National Taiwan University, and I also work as the research assistant in National Taiwan University, and I participate in the observer community. That is why I think Lauren made the people from Taiwan, like in Boston, and the Godzilla community actually, and also vTaiwan community is also part of the communities that it was being hosted under the OCF, Open Culture Foundation. It was one very important not international but local foundations in Taiwan, and the foundation is playing as a role of supporting our community because our community didn't enjoy a legal person status, and we need the OCF to holding these kind of like bank accounts and dealing with the financial issues for us to sustain. Yeah, and I'm also part of the vTaiwan contributors, and I think right now I'm the main contributors right now. Yeah. So in today's syllabus, I'm going to use the use the time to talk about what is vTaiwan and how do vTaiwan usually doing when doing discussions, and then doing maybe we can discuss some issues afterwards like that. And so first of all, what is vTaiwan? People usually think when people are reading about the news and the stories about vTaiwan, what people usually make is by the fruits or by the contributions going by the vTaiwan, but most people will ignore that vTaiwan is actually breed on the it's actually happened and actually to appeared on the political or the social movements, which is the Sunflower movements. So in case that you're not familiar with the Taiwan's like Sunflower movements, basically it is like the very huge and the very influential social movements in Taiwan. It was happened in 2014, which is currently a decade ago. And the Sunflower movement, in basically the context of Sunflower movement is that the government, which is led by the one-man party KMP, wants to pass the bill and building the closer ties with economic ties with China. And well, building closer economic ties sounds like good then, but not good right now. I think in Germany it is like the same. So basically, however, when passing the bill, they are not using the legitimate way. They passing the bill in a rush without too much supervision, without too much discussions, which was considered as a breach of democracy. So that is why people started to get angry about that. And then the Sunflower movement suddenly happens. People with anger coming to the chamber of the parliament and occupy the parliament for over 100 days. And after 100 days, the two parties have the consensus that these policies to build a closer tie with China should not be passed. And people also have the consensus that these social movements actually change the politics and also change the atmosphere of the society. So before the Sunflower movement, people are thinking that okay, even though we are living in a democratic countries, but however, the people's power is to compare with the government is still too little to like changing the government's policies. We need to rely on the legislators. We need to rely on these kind of politicians to fulfill our political will. But however, after Sunflower movements, people are starting to realize that hey, besides elections, besides voting, there's actually a lot of ways for us to participate into the social issues and like doing the self media. So also during the Sunflower movements, the internet become another main field of the politics, which means that people are starting to do discussions on Facebook, on social media. People are starting to do a lot of debating and discussions on the internet. And after that, a lot of websites coming up, self media coming up, and people are starting to do more discussions on the internet as well. So that is for the people side, but however, for the government side, the government starting to realize that okay, the conventional way or the old way of making a policy is not enough. So we need online platforms, especially for digital regulatory things, which means that the regulations on internet, the regulations on the newly emerging technology like Airbnb or Uber, although this sounds to be an old issue, but however, decades ago, it was kind of like a cutting edge issues, and it was kind of like emerging issues in the society and causing a lot of impact and influence on the society, good influence and bad influence, and we need to deal with the bad influence. So that is why the governments have the incentives to building up an online platform with the community, and the community is Gov0. So basically, these the woman showing on the screen, she was the former minister with a portfolio, and she made a proposal during the Gov0 hackathon event, and then she proposed that we want to have online platforms, and these online platforms will be supported by the government, and also the contributors from the Gov0 community can participate as contributors for vTaiwan. So that is why and how vTaiwan is created. So the comparison of the vTaiwan, or the comparison of the policy making process, is before vTaiwan is built. Usually policymaking is relying on heavily on professionals. I'm not sure if Germany is like that, but basically in Taiwan, before that, usually professionals controls everything. So basically these professionals, including the pro-government researchers or the lobbying coming from the large corporations, and usually these kind of process have intransparent and incomplete records. So even though Taiwanese government is obliged to open all the things, all the documents, except for the confidential parts to the public. But however, before like in decades ago, the transparency is not thoroughly. So which means that the government can hide a lot of things and giving people incomplete records, making people, even though you can get the record kind of like meaningless to you because it was not incomplete. It was really incomplete. And after vTaiwan was created, civic participation starting to be the main focus of the government. So basically, the vTaiwan is created by a community-based approach, which means that the community participants from all walks of life, from different fields and different backgrounds, can participate in this kind of process. And vTaiwan, another thing very importantly is to bridging the stakeholders. So usually when you are having a new policy, there's usually to be a lot of different stakeholders. The stakeholders may have the similar or contrary benefit or similar contrary concern, and we need to like bridging all the stakeholders together for the case that if somebody may be ignored, like the minorities, the gender minority, the racial minorities, these kind of things may be ignored, and we need to be more inclusive toward the stakeholders from different backgrounds. So that is also another mission of why vTaiwan is created. And also we are using some new technology. Live streaming kind of like very natural right now, but in a decade ago, the smartphone is not so strong right now as what we have right now. And live streaming is causing a lot of things. So it is not very popular. But however, vTaiwan kind of like the first to using live streaming to creating like a hybrid discussion field for everybody, no matter you are in online or you are available and you can participate in person, you can also participate in the discussions in any way. So you can see that that is the rough process of how we make discussions and how we make the legislation. So basically, if there's some problems or some issues appeared, the issues usually people with these people we usually have opinions to that issues. The opinions containing some actions containing their concerns. So we need to collecting these kind of opinions and then using the convergence to finding the consensus among the opinions coming from the different stakeholders. And usually the collecting opinion and convergence will have like the repetitive process, because we need to refine those people really concerns and those actions that really need to be done from this kind of process. And afterwards, the draft based on these kind of convergence process is being built, and because it was totally reflected from the opinion, so it kind of be more responsive toward the opinion that people raised. And these draft through legislature process, like passing the bill in the parliaments or making the policies by the government agencies like that, it will finally become law and regulation. Hey, and in the ideal way. So usually in the reality, some obstacles might happen, some challenges might happen. Some people is not satisfied with the draft, but however, with the vTaiwan process, we can make sure that the diverse enough opinion and diverse enough convergence and consensus can be built through these kind of process. And another important things of the Taiwan community is that we are actually under these kind of structures. So these kind of structures actually allow everybody, no matter how much time you can input to these projects, you can also become the contributor of the projects. When I was introduce these kind of things with other participants from abroad, when I was in the OpenAI headquarters, they're usually amazed by that, because it's kind of like very hard for them to imagine that every drop or every drip of the contributions can also count as the contribution. And usually they think that one action it needs a lot of people with the same goal and contribute a lot to propose these kind of things. But in vTaiwan, we have this kind of what we call blue parcel planning, the method of contributing to building open and health open parts. And these open and health open part allowing people with different degrees of contributions can also become one of the contributors and doing their own job. And vTaiwan, basically the mission of vTaiwan is to bridge. So we want to bridge the different stakeholders, the A, B, C, with the governments. And we use these kind of very, I'm not just on to say sophisticated, but like these kind of multi-step ways to achieve the goal we want to achieve. Like when an issue comes in, we usually qualify the issues and to discuss using discussions to find out the potential stakeholders in these process. And afterwards, we need to make the stakeholders participate into the discussions. And to participate into the discussions, you need two things. First things, you need the stakeholders. So you need to invite the stakeholders, and also ask the stakeholders is that if there's other parts that you are ignored or you neglected due to your limitation on the background or the living experience like that. So like, for example, when we are inviting the stakeholders in the end of the form, we usually say that, hey, do you know that somebody might be concerned about these issues? Or do you know somebody may be related to these issues, but we didn't know that? So the stakeholders usually will invite or giving us more information about other stakeholders that originally we don't know. And also another thing is that to achieve a more influential or more fruitful discussions, we need to prepare the information package, which means that the knowledge or the information context for the stakeholders to participate into the discussions. Because these stakeholders, usually they have their own concerns, but however, they may not be familiar with the context of the law. Like, so if you're losing these parts, you'll basically will undergo a lot of experience of making the wheels again. So people don't know that the wheels have been invented, but however, they will invented another wheel and say, hey, I invented a wheel, I'm the good guy, like that. So to avoid these kind of issues, we also need to prepare these kind of information package for the stakeholders. And afterwards, after we get the stakeholders, after we get the information, we can have these kind of curation and face-to-face dialogue together. And also we can what we use for the face-to-face dialogue is from the online deliberation and online opinion collecting. Like we will collect opinion online at first before we doing the face-to-face dialogue. And we can use some tools like the P here is called Polis, and the Polis was invented by a guy living in San Francisco. And the Polis, what amazes what is amazing things of Polis is that the Polis can actually visualize people's opinion. And it visualized way is that if people's opinion is convergence, it can show you how convergent the people's opinions are. And if the people's opinions is divergence, different, it can also visualize how people different from these kind of opinions. So among that issue, usually people have multiple opinion, like for the AI issues, people usually concerned about privacy issues for the users, but also it will concern about the copyright issues. So using the polis can allow us to see, like for different opinions, which is the people have more convergence and which is the people have the most divergence. They can visualize all those things, and we can see the spectrum of the between the convergence and the divergence. So that is allows us to building up the face-to-face dialogue based on these kind of data. Because if we know that people have some convergence opinion, then consensus is naturally made. We don't need to like curate, and we don't need to interfere into these kind of process, because people usually have these same opinions with each other. However, if the people have divergent opinion on some part of that, then will be worse for us to using the deep dialogue, the face-to-face dialogue, the discussions to look into it to see why people have these kind of different opinions together, and how can we make consensus even with these kind of difference in their mind. And afterwards, we can formalize the consensus from these kind of process, and then building up the law and regulation. Also, we are part of the GovZero community. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the GovZero community, but basically it is the civic tech community, and it was built by people. It has a lot of projects, and we usually get together to discuss about the social issues and how we can use the technological way to solve these kind of social issues with hackathon. So basically, we are activism. So when we are participating in the GovZero community, we will usually ask people to start a project, find somebody that can help you finish the project and do something toward the society. Okay, so after the brief introduction of vTaiwan, before I move on, any questions or any things coming up, or I've used out all my time? If not, I will just continue. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Who does the qualifying and the stakeholder discovery?
Who does the qualification? Oh, okay. It was kind of like next question. So usually it was being built by the community. So which means that for finding the stakeholders, we will usually the community members will decide this if the stakeholders is really qualified. Yeah. So you are asking a good.
So there's like a hackpad, and everybody can put some names there with some email addresses, for example, and then
the hackpad is kind of like a co-editing notes, so which means that everybody can put on something on that. And we actually don't have these kind of gatekeeper in this process, because we usually believe that the activism can actually substitute the work of the gatekeeper. So we do not need specific persons to guard these kind of things and to manage these kind of things. It was purely from the community-based approach. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I think I have used like 15 minutes or 20 minutes to discuss on that. So I will just quickly moving on to how to vTaiwan. So basically, if you want to do a vTaiwan process, you need to set up the issues. So which is what you're gonna do, like how you gonna find out the regulation of AI, or you're gonna find out the proper way to dealing with the digital sexual violence on the internet. Or this is kind of like heated topic in Taiwan, because one famous star and one famous television host is being under this kind of scandal of buying the child sex videos on the internet. So the digital sexual violence and how to regulate these kind of digital contents on the internet can become very heated in Taiwan. So before you setting up the issues, you need to understand the goals, you understand the status quo, you also need to understand what you have, like the resources, and potentially you need to have like the draft map in your mind about the stakeholders. Yeah. So last year when I was participating in the OpenAI project, OpenAI gave us the issues like this. So what principles to guide AI when handling the topics that involves both human and human rights and local cultural or legal difference. Like you know that the cultural things and legal differences actually is very different among the countries. Like for the Catholic countries to Islamic countries is totally different. They have totally different cultural backgrounds. And these kind of cultural backgrounds can lead to the different legal responsibility and liabilities for the people living in those countries. So especially like the gender issues like LGBTQ rights or women's rights. So yeah, this is basically the issues we choose to solve and we choose to explore in last year's projects. So before we may go into the face-to-face consultation meetings, we usually have the opinion collections. But when we are doing the face-to-face consultation meetings, usually it was hybrid. So which means that it will have an offline event, but also it will be live streaming online. So why we have live streaming is that we want to allow those people with geographical or time limitations who cannot present in person can also be included in these process. And we providing some ways to help them participate in these kind of process, like co-editing notes. So everybody can do the co-editing. You can type up the scripts of all the discussions, or you can type up your reflections and your ideas on the co-editing notes. Usually, it works autonomously and it works very well because there's always some volunteers that help us scaling, like tidy up all the things and prevent those people who wants to disturb the whole process of doing the disturbing. And we need to have a moderator. The moderator needs to be very strong. I become on moderator once last year, and it was kind of like quite challenging because there's basically multiple resources of the information will suddenly come to you, like the online people and the offline people. The information is kind of influx to you. Yeah. So how to dealing with that is kind of a very challenging job for you for a moderator to moderate the hybrid session. And I think one very important thing is that in vTaiwan process, we are not so much worshipping about debate because our ultimate goal is to finding out consensus. And debating is not usually leads to the result of consensus. Usually leads to the result of win and lose. So that is why we also always say is that, okay, you're not, when you're presenting your own opinions, make sure that you're not debating with each other, trying to debating with each other and trying to beat somebody up. Make sure that you're providing your opinions to make the whole consensus become more inclusive and more diversified, like that. Yeah, and yeah, so when you're finding the stakeholders, usually you need to consider a lot of things like minorities, like the cultural disadvantage, like maybe there's also another things especially happens to vTaiwan is that the digital gap, because the online opinion collection have more advantages toward the younger generations because they are digital native. They are familiar with using these kind of tools. But if you are talking about issues like for elder people or for the more people who is more familiar with the conventional computers or the handwriting things like that, maybe it is not very effective way to do so. And you need to find out the public sectors, like, because if you want to make sure that your discussions can become effective toward the government decisions, then you definitely need to use government agencies to support you to do these kind of things. The best scenarios will be the government want to make amendment of the law, or the government have realized the importance of these issues and wants to take actions, but the government is not sure about whether the public opinion is, or the government is not sure about whether the public consensus is. So the vTaiwan at these points, at these moments, can become a very helpful tool for government to understand about the public opinion and public consensus. And then the government can take the public consensus as a way to like dealing with the questions and making policies. Yeah. And AI users specifically important in these issues, because if you are discussing the AI things, you definitely need to consider about the user's mindset and the user's intention to using AI tools. Yeah. Basically, if you are working on the issues focusing more on technology, then you definitely need somebody who knows about the technology, the technicians, to be included into the process. Yep. Another thing is that the correspondence. So when we are doing these kind of issues, it's kind of like very difficult and challenging for us, because originally vTaiwan is dealing with the government policies. So the correspondence of the issue will be people from the government agencies, the officials. But in AI issues, the government agencies is not enough. The companies, the OpenAI, other companies like Meta, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, these companies producing and developing AI tools and AI models are the one who really need to corresponding to these kind of questions. Yeah, and they do really have incentives to do that, because like a lot of more and more government agencies and scrutiny is on the way. Like for European Union, they have the AI Act, which is the one and foremost AI regulation in the world. And in the United States, they also have some executive order coming from the presidential office to like regulate AI and impose some obligations and responsibilities on these AI developers and AI companies. Yeah, and also like later. So convergence, basically, this undergoing the process like this. So different opinions coming up, and there's might be some similarities coming up. And with some similarities, we will have the base for more discussions. And after more discussions, hopefully the consensus will be made. So the consensus converges opinions just like that. So the opinion collections, if you're using the QR code, you can scan it, and it will lead you to a Polis web page. So the Polis web page is actually that's why they say it is kind of like a very important way for us to understand and visualize and given as an important chance to visualize the people's opinions and how much degree about they have the same opinions or different opinions on towards a certain kind of issues. Yeah. So we divided our discussions into 3 different parts. So the first part is the data protection and privacy issues of AI. And the second issue is about bias and discrimination, which is more concerned about the minorities, like the gender minorities or racial minorities. Yeah. And the third part is the localization governance, like whether the governments can have the rules or using the rules to ask AI models not to produce certain parts of the responses, or ask the AI models to forbid or to ban the users from making certain kind of behaviors, like asking AI models to generate the photos of the child sex behaviors like that. Yeah. Okay. So basically that is what we did in last year's projects. And I think maybe if Lauren and your folks are interested about the reports, I can send you the report link afterwards. But yeah, I do not want to spare waste my too much time on introducing these kind of things, because I think the discussion is more worse for everybody to learn something from this process. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your introduction and the general talk. This was very interesting, and I'm very delighted to have someone from the civic tech community of Taiwan here. And now we'd go into the second part, the discussion. And yeah, I'd ask to everyone here, feel free to ask questions now. Just raise your hand and yeah, we'll go through it.
Oh, I think Carsten, how? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much for this very interesting talk. I have several questions. The first question is, in the foundation of vTaiwan, who was the main driver of making this organization come into existence? Because I could imagine if it comes from one, let's say, political direction from the government or from one party, then every other one would say, oh no, it's from them, we don't like it, we boycott it, and so on. So how did it come? Who was the main driver?
Okay, it's kind of like very interesting question. So who contributes most about the the forming and the building and make the vTaiwan's become real existence? I would say it is it is like the government officials have the incentives to doing these kind of things. And another very critical thing is that the proposer and the government official is the minister without portfolio. So minister without portfolio, unlike the regular minister who have like I'm not sure if in Germany you have the seven assistants. So, but in Taiwan, we have several ministers of portfolio, and their mission is to coordinate some missions that is beyond or single government agencies, which means that there has like some issues that is it will potentially fall them into the jurisdictions of the different government agencies, and we need somebody to coordinate these kind of different agencies' efforts. So that is why the minister with our portfolio because they didn't have any agencies and they didn't have any ministries to govern, so they can care more about like these kind of inter-agency or intergovernment interministry affairs, and vTaiwan is kind of like one of that. So yeah, I agree that if the vTaiwan is proposed by a minister, which is a minister with a single or specific agencies, they will be awkward because other agencies will say, hey, why do I need to do your job, or why do I need to call correspondent to these kind of issues, because it's kind of like falling into your part of jurisdictions, and the government officials are all busy about their own things, and they do not have the incentives to spare my time and spare my effort on that. But however, that is why the ministry of portfolios become very important into making these things come true and making these things possible, because they have the way, and their obligation is also to make other government agencies corresponding to these kind of things. Yeah. But I have to note that the vTaiwan is so special. It's not only because it was proposed by strong people or strong person in the government agencies, but it also proposed and by a lot of different participants from the civic tech community. So without these people coming from the civic tech community, I don't believe that the government agencies and the government officials can really achieve these kind of goals and missions. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, also thanks from me for the great talk. It was very interesting. I think I learned a lot. My question is whether I find it very fascinating that it seems to be really established in the sense that there are lots of people participating. I read something like 200,000 people having participated via Polis, something like that. And I wonder whether you had some challenges or on the way. So how did it develop from the beginning? Did you use the same tools at the beginning? Did you decide to change something because something didn't work?
Oh yeah. Actually, the diagram I show you is kind of like the older version diagram, which means that a lot of tools that are showing on the diagram is not used in vTaiwan right now. And we are still exploring some new ways. Like last year, after the OpenAI projects, we also cooperated with another group of people who working in another services called Talk to the City. So Talk to the City basically is using the AI models and the AI some services to build up the tool, allowing them to analyze different opinions, like categorizing different opinions and different users' personalities and mindset. Like, okay, based on these opinions they provided, these users is probably conservative people, and based on these opinions provided by the users, these guys might be progressive people. So just like that. So we are also working with different projects like this, and to try to get the experience of these. And also in vTaiwan participants, there are several PhD students who also working on the technological backgrounds, and they are developing some tools like the tools to making the voting systems or making the opinion collecting systems more convenient. So the tools is keep developing, and we are not limited by the old version of the tools. Yeah. So also for the first part of your question about how can we achieve like the 2,000 people participating to these kind of opinion collecting, I think it is because that we are successfully aroused people's attention toward the issues. According to the past experience of vTaiwan's projects, we find that people only, so you know that if you have the job, if you have your own life, it is actually not that kind of easy for you to participating to a certain kind of public issues. The public issues you will need to feel that the public issues have deeply related with you, then you will participate into these kind of opinion collecting. And that is also another thing that we are trying to overcome, is because if we are discussing some public issues that is not so popular or that are not so familiar with the general public, then how can we arouse people's attention? How do we arouse people's interest into participating these kind of process? In last year, I think we successfully aroused some people's attention, because we're saying that we are collaborating with OpenAI, and we have the chance to publish these kind of reports on the OpenAI website. We did. However, these changes not like regular change. It's not a normal change. So how can we use these kind of ways to arouse people's attention? I believe that maybe your community have the same questions or have the same problems like that about how to make people get more attention toward these kind of social issues and making the high quality discussions. And that is what we are working on, and also what we are struggling to do. Yeah. Lauren, go ahead. I think you're muted.
How do you ensure that the results of debates actually lead into policy-making action? Are there structures that ensures that the power is actually, or the people power is actually translated into policies? Or can policymakers say, okay, I don't want to actually work on this, I'm going to ignore it?
Excuse me, can you recite your question again? Sorry for that.
Sorry. So what, from a institutional point of view, what ensures that the results of public debate and consensus actually lead into policy making action?
Well, it was a good question, because you know that a lot of different institutions are doing these kind of public discussions, and usually these public discussions becomes into different results. And in vTaiwan, things originally the government have incentives toward listening to people's opinion, and also understanding people's public consensus and public opinion. So that is why they use the vTaiwan as a way to allowing more people's opinion coming into the government agency and decision-making process. But you know that right now, another thing the vTaiwan community is struggling to do is that building these kind of connection with the government agencies, because I think on the like the 2016 is kind of like the spot between two different governments. So before that, it was the government led by the KMP, and the KMP, due to its own political stances and their relationship with China, so they are actually losing the public trust. So they need some ways to building up their public trust, and vTaiwan is being taken as a way to building public trust, because it shows that people, the governments are actually have an incentive to hearing people's opinion, and it will be more easier for the governments to doing some agenda and policies. And however, after 2016, when the DPP government's coming up, DPP government have their own political agenda. So however, another change is that the DPP is more inclusive toward the community people. So a lot of community contributors is being enrolled into the government agencies, and so they become from Gov0 people to Gov people, like that. So this is kind of like a change between the time before 2016 and the time after 2016. And for vTaiwan, it's kind of like we are losing the connection from the governments. So originally, those corresponding government officials, due to these kind of attitude changing, they are not so much willing to cooperate with the Taiwan community, and they are losing the incentives as well, because you know that the DPP also, they are also facing some challenging times. But however, if you look into it, you can see that the DPP actually have like three different presidential consecutively win 3 different presidential election. So the incentives is losing for them to using the vTaiwan tools to building up these kind of public incentives. So there's also why the vTaiwan is trying to build out a new way. So originally, the vTaiwan community is like a cooperation between the government and the civic tech community. But right now, we have our own money and we have our own resources. So we're thinking that maybe we can doing our job or doing these kind of opinion collecting and making discussions totally from the community-based approach without considering the government's stances. And through these kind of ways, we can rebuild, because if we can really have a solid result and have done a very good discussions, the government may have the incentives to working with us. So that is also why we are doing right and building our actions right now. Yep.
Thanks a lot. So it's not binding in a way, but rather built on trust or the power of public opinion, that the government says, okay,
yeah, I have
priorities, and we're going to adjust our policies to that.
Yes. Compare with vTaiwan, there's another platform in Taiwan that's similar to collect people's opinion. It's called Join. And the Join platform is kind of like more successful, or more still using it, because the Join platform is being encoded in law, which means that the government agencies have legal responsibilities to reply and to respond to the proposals on the Join platform. But however, for vTaiwan, it is not really binding. So we actually relying on the government's intentions to working with us. So that is another thing. But the Join platform is not community-based. It was being controlled and being maintained by the government agencies. So it is not a community-based approach like vTaiwan. That is also the huge difference that people usually ignore when they are discussing about Join platforms and vTaiwan. Yeah. Hey, Paul, go ahead.
One thing I wondered about is it seems like these your projects really have also quite a bit of influence on some political topics, and I wonder whether there were some actors or some lobbyists or something like that who were trying to undermine these projects. Because, for example, in social networks, there are always lots of trolls and accounts you can't trust, and I wonder whether this is also something that affected your projects.
Hopefully, I think vTaiwan during the time when vTaiwan is having strikes and you'd be used to discuss a lot of social issues. The trolls and also Taiwan is kind of like a front line for the disinformation, especially from China. So a lot of Chinese disinformation, misinformation is spreading on the Taiwanese internet. And usually I receive these kind of information. It's not from myself, it's from my dad, because my dad is watching some Chinese TV shows like that. And they are my dad and their peers and their friends are usually spreading these kind of things. So this is the most important, this is the challenges and the threat we face right now. But during the time when vTaiwan is being used to discuss a lot of things, I think the threat is not so tangible because the disinformation and the misinformation are still developing, and it's not quite affect vTaiwan as well. But for the lobbying, I believe yes, like for Uber case, Uber is kind of like the most prominent case that vTaiwan being used to do the policies. I'm not sure if in Germany you have undergone these kind of same process, like the struggling between the original traditional conventional taxi drivers and the newly coming into the American companies, the Ubers like that. I see somebody nodding your head, so I think we basically have. So basically in Taiwan we have the same struggling, and the Taiwanese the Uber companies, they insisted that they are the technology company. They shouldn't be binded by these kind of like driver license, special driver license, or these kind of regulations that regulates the taxi drivers. They believe that these people are self-drivers, which means that the Uber only provide the platforms for them. But after the discussions, and during these discussions, the Uber actually sent their representatives coming to the PR representatives coming to the face-to-face discussions, and they understand that people still have concerns about these kind of self-driving, especially during that Taiwan's traffic conditions not so well right now, so and not so well then. So if a car accident happens, it will cause a lot of money, then cause a lot of damages like that. So compare with insisting these kind of stances from Uber's company perspective, they believe that maybe participating to the new rule making is kind of like a way more convenient and way more efficient way for them to achieve their purpose. So finally in Taiwan, the thing settled on like this. So the Uber is still a platform, but however, Uber can only operate in cooperation with the local hiring company, and the local hiring company will hire the taxi drivers. The taxi driver's license is not right now we call it diversified taxi drivers, which means that these taxi drivers do not need to drive the taxi in Taiwan is in yellow card, so the taxi driver in Taiwan, so the taxi drivers can drive their own cars, and they need to go through some basic trainings like that, and they need to get the special driver license for these kind of the diversified taxi drivers, and then afterwards they can be hired by the hiring companies, and the hiring companies will deploy these kind of like driving opportunities for them on the Uber platforms like that. Yep. So that is why we are working on that. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, Carson. Go ahead.
So I have a follow-up question on this. If I understood correctly, this is like a compromise, not what Uber originally wanted, because if in a fully liberal market, they could gain more money. So Uber, as a very big firm, has an incentive to to influence the political outcome of the regulation. For example, they could bribe persons to engage in this kind of online participation and to express their political will in favor of Uber. So
Yeah.
So this is always a question. If you have democracy, then yeah, potential bad actors could use the democratic mechanisms and influence the outcome to their benefit. And have you experienced problems like this? And how is vTaiwan robust, or are there mechanisms to prevent such problems?
Okay, I think these kind of things is inevitable if we are having in the democratic countries, and no matter in democratic countries or no matter in autocratic countries, it's just the same. So it is actually inevitable because people have the goal and the way of using money, using the resources to bribing or in changing people's mind is kind of like a very effective way to do so. The question is whether we can impose a more transparency way and whether we have a better way to dealing with these kind of problems. And fortunately, according to my experience when I was participating in the vTaiwan community, we haven't encountered these kind of ways to do so. But however, from my own perspective, I think vTaiwan as a community-based approach can also dealing with the problem simply because we are a community-based approach. So community-based approach means that although everybody can coming into the game, but however, the community-based approach relying heavily on the community participants perspective and also community-based community participants intention. And basically, I think it is kind of like not that easy to using the bribe. So originally in the gatekeeper way or conventional ways, you can bribe the scholars, you can bribe the certain kind of people, you can bribe the government officials controlling these kind of things. It's kind of very easier for you to concentrate your resources to influence the certain kind of the little people, because little people have a lot of power on their hand. But however, in the vTaiwan's community-based approach, we separate the power into different kinds of stakeholders and different kinds of community members. So even though like one or two community members is being influenced or being affected by these kind of ways or being bribed as well, it cannot play too much influence compared with the conventional ways. So that is why I believe that the community-based approach is kind of like a good way to dealing with these kind of problems, because simply because we separate the power, not making it concentrated in the group of people, but making it concentrated on making it separated to different parts of the community. Hi, Lauren, go ahead.
I've got another follow-up on this.
Yeah.
What kind of moderation issues are you running into?
Again, sorry, moderation issues?
Right. What kind of moderation issues do you have? What do you have issues with spamming, for example, or hate speech, things like that? Or
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's another problem, and especially it's very good concern. So during the last year, and when we are discussing about AI, and we are in the face-to-face dialogue with different groups of stakeholders, I was pointed, one participant pointed out that one opinion that shows on our vTaiwan result and police result is one opinion that we collected is kind of like have the discriminatory content, and how we deal with that. However, it was kind of like minor one. It's not like very express discrimination, but it's kind of implies some discriminatory content. So after that remind, we certainly apologize, and also we think we also marked that we also make some like the marks on these kind of comments and the opinion. But during the opinion collection process, we allows the users to add their own opinion. We allow the police can do this. So you can also switch the settings, but the default settings allows people to use to upload their own opinion. And but however, you can also choose that whether you want these people uploaded opinion to automatically appears on the web page, or only after your authentication and after your authorization, they can appear on the web page. So we choose, due to the hate speech problems and discriminatory content problem, we actually choose to add another block on that. So which means that we have several committee members who will regularly review these kind of newly added contents, and then if the newly added content is not really problematic, we will just authenticate and authorize that and making it appears on the web page. Yeah, but why the discriminatory things happening in the first part I was talk about is that the discriminatory content is existing in the original opinion we provided on the playlist. So since we want to invite people to participate, we need to create our own opinion. We need to create our own content. Like it's just like the zero of the 0 to 1 process of the whole opinion collection. So we produce like after interviewing with different kind of professionals and community members, we produced several opinions to making people agree or disagree with these opinions like that. And the discriminatory implication contents is being is within the 30 opinion we provided at first place. So things happen like that. Yep. Hi, Carson, go ahead.
So again, following up on this, this seems quite a lot of moderation effort which is necessary. And would the whole concept of vTaiwan work without some money being involved? Because I guess the moderators are paid, or are they volunteers? And so the question is, how big is the budget of the whole vTaiwan, and would it be possible to do this without the budget?
Oh yeah, it was a good question. So definitely, when running these kind of events, definitely it will spend some money. And but however, for all these kind of moderating process before the civic before the face-to-face dialogue, it was purely voluntary. So me and a lot of members of the vTaiwan communities spending their time for free dealing with these kind of issues. Yeah, I think that is also another thing that why can also be responsive to your former questions about why there's no people like how to dealing with the bribing and the effections of that, because if we are all voluntarily, then people is not having too much possibilities to using bribing or our resources to influence these kind of decision making. Yeah. But however, we do spending some money into organizing the whole event. So like we hire some part-time workers to working on and maintaining order of the events, and also to keep circulating the information from online and offline, because we also have live streamings and offline, and also we need to do the live streaming. So the whole event will costing like if it was changing to euros, it was like 7,000 euros like that. Yeah. And OpenAI actually grants us, because we are not purely by ourselves, but we are working with the Chatham House, another well-known institute in United Kingdom. And so we're working on with Chatham House, and I think we received about 30,000 euros funding coming from OpenAI. And these 30,000 euros fundings, we still have some rest of the money in the accounts like that. So that is why I say we have our own money now. So because originally vTaiwan community did not hold any resources, our resources purely from the community-based community and also from the government agencies. So the government agency will spare some of their budget to supporting the vTaiwan's events, and we can use the government's monies to develop our own events. But however, without the connection with from the governments, we lose this kind of fundings. So we need to find our own fundings like that. Yeah, there's also another things we want trying to do. Yeah. Okay. I hope today's sessions actually answered a lot of questions coming from you guys. And if you guys have like the traveling budget, I would like to introduce that right now, May 4th and May 5th, we are actually holding a GovZero summit, and it was a biannual summit in Taiwan. And we will also do live streamings on YouTube. So if you have time and you're available, then you can search GovZero G0V and on YouTube, and you can see the videos on YouTube. And the live streamings will be starting like from May 4th and May 5th, working weekend. And if you can come to Taiwan, I really welcome you to participate in the summit. But if you can't, you can still watch the live streaming from YouTube like that. And we also preserve the video about that afterwards. So make sure if I can send Lauren about the information afterwards. So you can definitely get what you want. And I'm thinking that maybe I will go to Germany in September. Is still not decided, but because I was in Central Europe then, so maybe you can have a not online but real face-to-face meetup. Then we can still have some discussions with Lauren and other members like that. Yeah. Thank you guys.